Just minimize OBS. There we go. There we go. We should be live now, I think. Can you see anything at your end, Chris?
I'm just checking. Anyway, hello.
The sound as well.
Hello. Just introduce yourself. Let's just start. Just presume it's on.
Yeah, all right. We'll just presume it's on. If you can hear us, hello. We're back again for our second stream. Me and Skur, Fleur and Skur again. But this week we're going to go a little bit more political, a little bit more different. We obviously discussed the 13th Doctor's announcement last week because it was a bit of fun for a bit of Doctor Who. But now we're going to go into really serious depth and we're going to talk about Jeremy Corbyn and the Labour Party he is leading at the moment. Obviously, I think we should start by outlining our positions on Jeremy. Like, I'm. Me and Skur. Have you got it there? Are we streaming?
You're coming through, as well, yeah? Just hope that obviously I'm coming through as well. Yeah, you're coming through very sketchy on my side. You're fine on the stream, like.
Are you all right on the stream on your side? Can you hear it?
Yeah, I'm just gonna check. Obviously, I'm coming through the sound because you all want to hear my beautiful voice. I'm also admiring the look of this guy who sat next to Corbyn. He's pretty cute. Just saying, it's not to find me matches. Oh yeah, it's fine.
You're going about your Tinder match again.
Yeah. Right, okay. Let's go. Sorry.
Yeah, Chris is on the market, guys. If you're interested, and that is guys as well.
Yeah.
Just in case you're interested, he's a lovely-looking lad.
Thank you. Stop it, you. Stop it.
Anyway, I suppose we better get on topic.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, we'll be talking Jeremy Corbyn this week and the Labour Party he's leading. I can't say that today. But yeah, I thought we'd start with like Corbyn as a leader, and we'll be talking about a few particular issues like Corbyn's changing stance on tuition fees, Corbyn's changing stance on the single market, the accusations of anti-Semitism within the Labour Party since he's took over, obviously with regards to Ken Livingstone as well, a few other members of the Labour cabinet that Corbyn's nominated to positions, like whether they're fit for office and were they wise decisions for the Labour leader to make, such as John McDonnell and Diane Abbott, especially with regards to
Diane Abbott.
performance.
Oh, we love a bit of DNA. Oh yes.
DNA. We do. We wouldn't be able to live without her. Obviously, a few more reactions to Corbyn as well, and obviously we're taking this, and also Venezuela as well. I didn't think of that. I keep forgetting about Venezuela. Like, that's the most recent thing in the news about Corbyn, is refusal to condemn the elections in Venezuela and Maduro. So anyway, we're going to go a little bit back in time now. Cast your minds back to when the announcement of the general election by Theresa May at the start of May. I think it was, wasn't it? It was, what day was it in May? It was the first week in May.
Oh, I don't know. She didn't give them very long. It must have been early May.
It was only 6 weeks. I think it might have been end of April, start of May. Anyway, cast your minds back, and you may remember during the campaign that this was obviously later on, like I think it was 2 weeks before the election, Corbyn pledged to do something about tuition fees for students.
I can't hear you, mate, through my sound.
Can you not get me on Skype? You're not getting me.
You're just really sketchy, because I think you might be speaking quite fast. So you come through very sketchy, and I can't really make out what you're saying clearly. Not clearly enough to respond.
Okay. I'll slow it down then a bit. For you, Chris. If you want to, if it helps, you could close the stream now if you know it's working. You could.
Oh, I've closed that as well. Like, I'm on literally just this.
All right. Okay. Can you see my screen? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We should be fine then. I'll just try and make it a bit easier for you. I don't really know how to up your signal on Skype. If anybody can tell us, that would be really helpful. Because we've been struggling with this. I'm thinking I might try Google Hangout out for that. It's supposed to be quite good, I think. But anyway, we'll stick with what we've got for now. But yeah, obviously Corbyn pledged to do something about tuition fees. Now, I know that this wasn't in the Labour manifesto when they wrote it, but I think it's, I think it's interesting when he came out with it and the timing of it all, and I think we should start with that, and obviously what's happened after the election, after Labour have gotten a lot of student votes. The majority of student votes and majority of young people, which was a surge in voting that gave them a lot of seats. Corbyn obviously changed his mind on the topic.
Hello?
Yes? You're right. You there, Chris?
I can't hear you. I think you've gone.
I can still hear you. I can still hear you.
Like, literally, I heard nothing what you said for the last minute, but I didn't want to interrupt again.
Oh. Don't worry, it'll all be fine.
I'm literally getting none.
I can hear you,
none then.
so I don't know what to make of that.
What's your signal like? 'Cause my internet's really strong.
My signal's fine. Everything's working at my end.
My end seems fine. Like, the internet seems quite strong.
Yeah, according to my Skype, it's all going. I'll talk a bit closer to the mic if you want. Is that helping?
It's not. It's like when you come through, you just like sound really hazy. Anyway, my pizza's just done, so you continue and I'll be back.
It's probably because I'm streaming as well. It's probably splitting the signal. But yeah, obviously Corbyn claimed as well that he'd be willing to scrap tuition fees as early as autumn if Labour won the election. As long as he won the election. But after the election, we see something very, very different. And he claims that if he'd have known about the amount of tuition fees, like tuition fee debt, that I think it currently stands at 100 billion. He changed his mind and said we would never have promised.
76 billion.
76 was it?
That's the official number that's currently owed by students. 76 billion.
We've done well there, haven't we? It's only been 15 years, and even then only 5 of those on the £9,000 limit. We've done well there. But yeah, like Jeremy obviously has said he wouldn't have promised, he wouldn't have made the promise if he'd have known about the level of debt, because it would have been difficult for Labour to deal with. Now, from my take on this, like obviously, Chris, you're going to have a different take on this from me, because you're a bit more pro-Corbyn than me. But I'd say that just either is, at best, incompetence coming from Corbyn as a leader of a political party, making promises that he shouldn't be making, because he doesn't have the facts and figures in front of him, and then he's changing his mind when he gets them. And I think that a leader can't make promises like that without the facts in front of them first, or fundamentally, or at worst, this could be the more negative take, is that Corbyn just used that promise, that empty promise, to buy votes from students that were struggling with the debts, and then he's just, like, as soon as he's gained a few seats and shored up his position in the party as party leader, he's then throwing them on the fire. And I think there's more proof of that with regards to single market membership, which I'll mention later. But I suppose I should really pass it over to Chris now, because you have another take on this, don't you?
I think what we've got to, when we're talking about Corbyn's promise on tuition fees, I just want to clarify a few things to make it much more clear about what's actually gone on. I know a lot of you will have some idea about what's actually happened here. But to say Corbyn's completely made a U-turn on tuition fees, I don't think it's fair to him, and I don't think it's fair to what the Labour Party's stance actually is. So from doing my own research, the problem that's actually raised here is Corbyn did, as you say, about 2 weeks before the election, a sort of interview with the NME magazine kind of thing, and he made a pledge that he would, and I quote, deal with it. He would deal with the problem of tuition fees, and he did promise to abolish fees. Now, what we've got to try and contend with is, what did Corbyn mean when he said abolish fees? Did Corbyn mean abolishing every single piece of student debt that exists currently, or did he mean abolishing tuition fees for obviously the foreseeable future? So when he got in government, abolish fees so that when the next lot of people go to university, it's free. Okay, that was his pledge. That was his pledge.
Can
his
I just interject here briefly?
Yeah.
I actually agree with you on this to a certain extent, because I remember Corbyn saying he'd wipe debt from after 2017, like that next year, that it would be debt free. But obviously, for somebody like me who's just finished university, I wouldn't receive any of those benefits, which was one of the main reasons why I didn't vote for him, because I knew I wasn't being sold a carrot. Yeah. But I still think though that that was like, obviously he's U-turned on it again now, because he said that we wouldn't have made that. Why did he say then we wouldn't have made that promise if I'd have known about the debt levels? Because that implies that he was going to do something with that and actually help out the people that were paying £9,000 from 2012 onwards, which he did actually mention. I think also in the run up to the election, that he said he'd deal with some of those problems as well. I think he said.
Yes, you're correct. He did say.
Because the Greens doubled down on it, didn't they? And they said they'd abolished a lot of it.
Yeah. So just to clarify a few things here, it was the Green Party said they would eradicate current tuition fees, but would also eradicate previous student debt. Now, Corbyn never pledged to eradicate all debt for previous students. That was never Corbyn's pledge, and was never, in fact, what the Labour Party had pledged. What Corbyn pledged was to abolish tuition fees for the foreseeable future. For as in, when you next go to university, like the students just coming in, it would be free. That was Corbyn's pledge. It wasn't to eradicate the debt, which obviously we now know 76 billion is quite a lot of money and is quite a big pledge. I think the bigger question here, and it's a question in politics that's been, as obviously with the Brexit campaign, etc., is putting things simply and making sure that people understand what you're actually saying. Because throughout the election campaign, a lot of people did believe that Corbyn was almost just promising to get rid of every single piece of student debt that's ever existed, but that was never the Labour Party's position, because it wasn't affordable. But it almost seemed that was the Labour Party position.
Yeah, but shouldn't Corbyn as a leader be making that more clear and making that more articulate?
And that's, I was going to say, that's probably a criticism of Corbyn I would accept. That, he probably should have made that a bit more clear. In terms of actually classing this as some kind of U-turn, and you talked about, someone...
I know, well, this is what I said.
Just give us a second, just one second.
Sorry.
Yeah, so you were talking about, people, changing... It almost appears that Corbyn has changed his mind when he's seen how much it's going to be. Now, one of the things I'd like to add to that is, for me, that is a very good sign for Labour. And I'm gonna explain why. It's a very good sign because a lot of the Labour Party's critique in history has been about, not being able to understand economics, etc. That's what a lot of people on the right hold. Now, here is clearly a party leader for the Labour Party who's seen this massive figure and started to take a step back in what he would have liked to do and to be more realistic. And yet still the right criticises him. Instead of being painted as this figure who's gone, waiting a minute and thinking about economics and trying to think about what's affordable and not.
Well,
the right finds the other way to criticise him, which is to say he wasn't on it.
That he's back. Yeah, he's backtracked. But this is what I'm saying. Like it's all well and good. Like, I think that the right does have a point to criticise him on there economically, and obviously I'm going to go into more about that later when I mention some of his cabinet picks, like John McDonnell. I think that the point that is made is, if Corbyn was actually thinking about economics ahead of time as a leader, he never would have made that promise. You can't be retroactive about these things. If you're going to be a leader, you have to be proactive about them and be thinking about them and make sure you make the right decision when you announce the decision to be made. Like, I'm not saying that Theresa May is no saint for doing that. She's backtracked on a load of things as well. But I think that obviously, yeah, we're going to mention Theresa. Right, I'm going to bit of a spoiler for you next week. We're doing Theresa May, but we'll be talking more about that, and those criticisms of May are quite similar to Corbyn as well, in that she makes economic promises and then backtracks on them, whether because of public opinion again and the way she's been portrayed in the media. But I think that the point needs to be made that as a party leader, like, what constitutes good leadership is making decisions and sticking to them because you know they're right, and you know that it's all been vetted and it's all been, all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, and everything has been thought through beforehand. It doesn't seem ad hoc, it seems post hoc, and the right decision's been made. I think there's a point there to be made.
Yeah. It's just a few things just to come back at that. Like, obviously, one of the things I'd like to make quite explicit is, again, like I was saying, the writers sort of painted this as some sort of not being honest and U-turn. And of course, one of the things they've, one of the things you've even mentioned at the moment is, so this idea of Corbyn rushing into things and, saying them too quickly. Well, let's just remember that this election was called very quickly.
I knew you'd mention
lots of time. And one of the things I would pick you up on what you said is that good leadership is about making decisions. And it is. But it's also not about being a dictator, and it's also about consulting what, obviously...
Well, I never said he was a dictator,
wait, I'm not saying you said that, just wait a minute. Obviously, you said it's about making decisions, right? And one of the things, although Corbyn does make decisions, in terms of policy, Corbyn has always said in his leadership campaign, etc., that he wants to, give that power back to the members. Now, having an election called in such short time, one doesn't allow Corbyn to...
Well, I'm going to mention something a little bit about that later on with regards to the single market decision about him giving power back to members.
Yeah, so it's all good, very good. Well, one, Corbyn made a U-turn which he didn't make, and two, saying that the policy didn't see well through. But he didn't have much time to think through this policy. And let's face it, we've got to be realistic. Tuition fees is a complex issue that is not going to be solved in a 2-month campaign.
You're right. You're absolutely
agree
right
on that. So this seems a very petty excuse to have a go at Corbyn, who really, in the campaign, said, I would like to deal with it. Well, I'm pretty sure we'd all like to bloody deal with it, and none of us are going to get criticised for saying that, are we?
I know, but, I think there's an important, there's a time when you've got to know when to say something and when not to say something. Like, Theresa May was completely silent on tuition fees, and she received no criticism for it in the press. I mean, obviously, she was being criticised left, right and centre for everything else, but she didn't receive much criticism from the press, whereas Corbyn did.
This is just a rubbish point. Like, come on, Fairhurst. Right. If Theresa May, for example, said nothing...
No, but we're talking about Corbyn's quality as a leader here.
Yeah, but tuition fees is like a core element of, left-wing politics and of the Labour Party.
Introduced him, so yeah.
It would be like Theresa May mentioning nothing about Brexit, one of her big policies. She's not going to do it, and she'll get a lot of slap if she says nothing. So Corbyn had to say something, and what did he say? Instead of publishing a massive, kind of policy, he said, I'd like to deal with the issue, suggesting that maybe he needed a bit more time to think through a policy.
I know, and I don't agree with the whole, Corbyn's made a U-turn, he's betrayed all the students. The sort of more... I mean, fair enough, I'm more right-wing than you, but I'm not that right-wing. Personally, I'd call it a promise that he shouldn't have made, but that's not a sign of him being a strong leader.
What should he have done? Answer that question, then. What should he have done?
Well, personally, I would have said... If he doesn't know what to do, don't say anything at all. That's what I would have done, personally.
So, the Labour Party's voting base
But that's obviously a bad idea for getting power in an election, because that would start to spin it round.
It's not a bad idea just in getting power, okay? The Labour Party did well in this election because of young people voting for them, right? Yeah. Big issue for young people is tuition fees. So, of course, Corbyn has to say something on it.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
That's what he did. He said something on it. It wasn't lots. It wasn't... If it had come out and given this real detailed way of getting out student debt that seems rubbish, I'd be the first to hold my hands up and say that looks crap. But all he's done here is literally say, I want to deal with the problem.
Yeah, but I want to move on to this. This Telegraph article has a very similar perspective to mine here. Like, you remember Nick Clegg in 2010, don't you? You remember Nick Clegg about his promises of tuition fees, and obviously the massive U-turn he made. I'm not saying that Corbyn has made anything in the realm of Nick Clegg's proclamation about tuition fees in 2010, but it's, you know, some similar notes are there. Like, he might regret making that promise. Like, you know, it might come back to haunt him, as this article says. Like, not for the first time, promises made to students by our political leaders have been broken. John McDonnell's admission that wiping out student debt is an ambition as opposed to a promise surely represents the beginnings of a climb down on this policy. It now seems far less likely that this will be a cast-iron guarantee and concrete pledge as Labour tries to this policy begin to loosen. Sadly,
it was never a concrete pledge!
Well, I know it wasn't a concrete pledge, but I think there's still something to be said here. Like, if you're going to make a claim that you're going to do tuition fee, that, you know, you're going to do something about tuition fees, it becomes a concrete pledge in the eyes of certain arms of the media. I know that the Telegraph,
fair enough.
They're going to put their own spin on it, but let's look through the spin and let's look at what they're saying here. Like, sadly, politicians abandoning their commitments to students is nothing new in British politics. It wasn't so long ago when one Nick Clegg pledged to scrap tuition fees, which he did.
But yeah, but can I just say, just quickly on this, like, just before we get into the details of actually what it's going to go on about, which is obviously going to be about young people voting, how they voted, and the consequences for Labour. Just a quick thing on comparing it to Nick Clegg. That is very bold. That is very big. And that is exacerbating the fact, trying to make Corbyn look worse than I think he actually is. Like, one of the things you'd also have to bear in mind is the way that the Liberal Democrats...
It's a hyperbolic example, for sure. It's a hyperbolic comparison.
Yes, it is, because... But what
obviously the Telegraph's got to put its own spin on things.
Yeah, what I'm trying to say is there's more than just... There's more reasons why you would trust Labour to follow through with a certain pledge than the Liberal Democrats. For example, Labour believe in a much more of a socialist kind of economy that would mean that these kind of policies, through their kind of economics, would be more likely to be carried out than a Liberal Democrat kind of idea of economics.
Mm.
And you also have to bear in mind the situation of the Liberal Democrats. They are in coalition with the Conservative government.
Yeah, I know. I understand that. Like, obviously, Nick Clegg's hand was forced.
Yeah, what do you think? Is it going to look good for a coalition just like 1 week after it forming, the Liberal Democrats turning around and saying, but it is affordable, and the Conservatives are talking crap? It's not, because they want to show a sign of unity and strength, right? So, of course, they're going to say...
but, like, to the people that voted Liberal Democrat, like, that is a massive slap in the face. And I remember thinking to myself, I was only 13 at the time, obviously I couldn't have voted, but I remember thinking to myself, I would have voted for Nick Clegg in this election. And when he did that and the tuition fees tripled, it was like a massive slap in the face for me. And it's something I've never really gotten over in terms of politics. And I think it's also the reason as well, like, well, at least partly per se, like, why there was so much political disenfranchisement in the youth until Corbyn came in. Like, a lot of people, like, you know, obviously voter turnout was massively down for the, you know, the 18 to 24-year-old bracket for politics. But obviously that changed under Corbyn, as there was a big massive vote surge. Like, as this article says, Labour garnered 66% of the vote among 18 to 19-year-olds in the general election, and 62% of 20 to 24-year-olds. And obviously there was a massive upswing in the amount of 18 to 24-year-olds that voted.
Yeah.
This year, I'm just trying to find the figures. I had it somewhere. No, this wasn't it. It's, I had the figure. Is it 66%? Or was it 69%?
It's something like that. It's ridiculously high.
It was really, really high, wasn't it? Like, especially
which is fantastic for politics. Which is fantastic, you know.
Oh yeah, no, that's a great thing. We both agree on that one.
Like, the difference is, again, one of the main, like, power. Like, making pledges, you can make pledges as much as you want. When you get into power, it's about seeing them through. So I don't think you can adequately judge Corbyn on his pledges and saying he's broken them, because he isn't in power. If he'd have got in power and then would have done nothing on tuition fees, that would have been a broken pledge, right?
Yeah, you're right, but I think there's a point to be made. Like, even as the opposition, you've got to be thinking, I want power. I want to get into power, and I need to be making pledges that I know I can stick to when I make it into power. You can't just be firing off pledges and promises that you can't keep just to get into power, because that makes you look incredibly bad later on. And it's something that all politicians have done. Like Blair's done it. Thatcher's
but
done it. Like, loads of different politicians have done it.
I don't think this specific example is Corbyn breaking a pledge. I don't think he's broken a single pledge in this at all.
Yeah, but he has changed his mind on it, hasn't he? And I think that you could spin that as breaking a pledge, but like obviously,
how has he changed his mind?
Spin then. Like you can change your mind as a leader. You
but how has he changed his mind?
He's changed his mind about. He said he was going to do it. Now he's saying he won't. Like he's
changed
his mind.
Right? No. He pledged he was going to abolish tuition fees, not for previous students. Tuition fees, he wanted them reduced, to 0. Yeah.
But now he's saying he's not going to do it at all.
What have you got the oven on for?
That hasn't changed. He's changed his policy towards previous student debt and the 76 billion that's owed. That's what he's changed.
Yeah, but he's said that he's not going to do anything on it at all. Is he still mentioning stuff about abolishing fees? Because I've not heard him say anything now after the election's finished. And I haven't heard anything from the more left-wing press outlets say anything on it either. Like, the silence has been really deafening about this from the left. Like, it's only been the Telegraph, the Mail, the Sun, like all the Murdoch papers that have been covering this. And I think it's quite interesting yeah, but I think that it's interesting that the left-wing press haven't had an answer for it. Like, I think there's this could be one case where they're telling the truth in a certain frame of mind. You know what I mean? Because the left would normally come out and defend Corbyn over this, and they haven't.
Well, I think they have. I think if you look,
I haven't seen many articles about it in the Mirror or the Guardian.
But the Guardian article, isn't there? There's one Guardian article where I'm pretty sure Angela Rayner's like half of the article saying why this is a load of crap. And of course, she's the Shadow Education Secretary.
Have you got a link to that?
I'll tell you what, I can get you a bloody link.
Yeah, get me.
What, do you need the oven on, or have you used the oven?
I've used the oven, Grandad.
Yeah,
this is my Grandad. It's his birthday today, actually.
Oh, is it Grandad's birthday?
Yeah, and he's just sat here.
Alright, shout out to Chris's Grandad, whose birthday it is.
Yeah. Right, give me a minute. Okay, here we go. Right, I'll send you the link right now. He's 87.
He's 87. I think my Grandad's 87.
Okay, I'll send you this link, and then you can have a look at it. And then I'm going to have to chop up my pizza. Alright, and I'll be back in...
Alright. Yeah, go on, send it me. I'll have a look.
Hello there, you can talk to me.
You enjoying your birthday?
I am, yes. I've been out for a nice meal with his mother.
Oh no, I have seen this article. I've read it before. I don't know why I didn't bring it up actually myself.
Excuse me.
Sorry.
Hello.
Hey Chris, you back?
Yeah, so clearly Andrew...
Yeah, I've seen this article before. I've read it.
Then it's not like they're all sitting quiet and like just taking this like ducks because it's true, because it's not...
You haven't sent me the Rayner one.
Yeah, scroll down.
Oh, you're on... It's Jessica Elgert, this.
No, scroll down. She didn't write a piece, she's quoted in the article.
Oh, sorry. I thought you meant she wrote the article, sorry.
Oh, no.
Ah, yeah, it's here.
It's towards the bottom of the article, I think. Is she? Oh, no, it must be
During
the other
the final
one.
week in Parliament, Conservative MPs regularly attack Labour for appearing to mislead young graduates. After both McDonnell and Shadow Education Secretary Angela Rayner distanced...
I've sent you the wrong one, I think.
You think you might have done. I was going to say, because it's like some real
savage words from Ian Duncan Smith from calling them Labour students election fodder, which, to be honest, kind of reflects on what he thinks of students as well.
No, I can't find it.
Alright, well, I'll tell you what, if we find it later, we can come back to it, because I want to, I think how long have we been talking about tuition fees? I'm not sure how long the stream's been going on, actually. But I think it's time to move on to a single market now, if you're up for that, Chris, or have you got any closing remarks to make? Or do you want to carry on?
Closing remarks are going to be very short and simple. Corbyn didn't make a U-turn. Corbyn kept to his promises, made pretty similar promises, and I actually think him sort of changing, well, I wouldn't say changing his mind, contemplating what to do about previous student debt can only be a positive for students rather than a negative.
Well, my closing remarks would be, I'd agree that it isn't a complete U-turn. That's obviously true. But I think that it makes him look indecisive, and that's not a good quality for leadership of a major political party. Which is why I disagree with what Corbyn's said here. Well, disagreed with what Corbyn's said. But anyway, I think this is one that you might be a little bit more interested in, Chris, because obviously you voted to leave the EU, and I voted to remain. Obviously, my stance has gone more towards yours at this point now. But if you look at this, these two articles from The Guardian, we've got big majority of Labour members want UK to stay in the single market. And then this was on the 17th of July 2017. Then a week later, on the 23rd of July, Labour would leave single market, says Jeremy Corbyn. Like, that to me, on the face of it, shows that Corbyn is out of touch with his members of his party.
Come on.
On the face of it. Obviously, we'll get into the meat and bones of it later.
There is no way that this man, Corbyn, can please anyone. No way! Alright?
Yeah, but he's not even pleasing his own party members there. Like, you can't dispute that.
He's not pleasing his own party members, and his votes just increased in the last general election. I think he's doing rather well, I would say.
Yeah, but I think there's a point there, though, isn't there? Like, why is he out of position on this issue? Like, this has been... Wait a minute, well, the election was on June the 8th, wasn't it? This is in July, this is a month after.
Well, I can explain exactly why. Would you like me to?
Please do.
Okay. Because Corbyn uses his ears. Corbyn listens to what is being said. Corbyn respects democracy. Corbyn acknowledges that the vote to leave, however you want to put it, was fundamentally about three things. Leaving the European Union. Yeah? Leaving the single market.
Yeah.
Ending freedom of movement. Those were the three things that people who voted leave voted for. Now you may say, and some people watching the stream may think, that those three things weren't clear. I will reiterate.
No, they were very clear. I completely agree with you on this.
They were made explicitly clear by everyone who was on the Leave campaign. There was a video that was put out shortly after we left, by the Remains for Europe, which was a video that showed the leaders of Leave saying they wanted to remain in the single market, yet every single piece of their footage, besides one, was from actually outside the campaign period. So that was rubbish. So it was very clear, and actually what this shows is Corbyn is listening, not just to his party, which of course...
Yeah, but didn't you say, though, before that he was trying to give power back to his members? This shows Corbyn going in completely the opposite direction from his members, which shows that they have little power compared to Corbyn. They can't dispute that, surely. Like, Corbyn's out of touch there with his own, core party voters. Or at least a good amount of them. 49% of members think there should definitely be a vote on the final Brexit deal, with a further 29.4% answering more yes than no to the question, and only 8.8% definitely opposing it. And this was only a week as well, a week before Corbyn announced that he'd be leaving, that Labour would leave the single market. Like, that to me, not that many people will have changed their opinions on leaving the single market in a week, like, in terms of members.
So I think that we can use those figures quite accurately to determine that Corbyn is out of touch with his own party on leave. Here, I mean, fair enough. I'd say he's actually more in touch with the general population, because personally I'd agree that now we've voted to leave, we should completely leave. We should leave the single market. You know, we should completely leave the EU, because it's the right thing to do. It's what we voted for as a nation. It's the right thing to do. And Corbyn has now said that, so obviously I'm more inclined to vote for Corbyn as a leader, because he's committed himself to a similar Brexit stance to Theresa May. But I think that it's interesting that he's out of, like, you know, you've said yourself that he wants to give power back to, you know, he wants to be in touch with his members of his party and grow his party into a sort of mass party membership. But he's completely, yeah, there's no denying that he's completely out of touch with half of the members of his party on this issue that said they said they were interested in this. 2/3 of members, 66%, think Britain should definitely stay in the single market, with a further fifth saying more yes than no to the question. So that's 86% that believe that are more positive towards staying in the single market than leaving the single market. Only 4.2% reckon that Britain should definitely leave the single market. So that's my stance on it anyway.
For me, right, what the Labour Party has to realise, one... Hello?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sorry, just sort of trying to go back to where I was, because I sort of missed what you were saying. But for me, the Labour Party has to realise that leaving or remaining in the single market is not an option. We are leaving. I'd also like to point out that your poll, this poll that seems to have come out, is a poll that's gone over the last 3 years. So obviously, doesn't just it's a project.
Have you got the same figures in front of you that I have for Labour Party members?
Yes, yeah, exactly. And it's not something they just did on the snap of their fingers. This is
of course not.
Yeah, it's a polling company that's been running over the past 3 years. So obviously, this isn't just going to be the most accurate piece of thing that we could ever use to describe Labour's opinions. I do feel, although the majority, and I'm not going to deny it, the majority of Labour parties would probably most likely and do support staying in the single market. But Corbyn and the Labour Party is not just about the members who exist within Labour, of course. He's also got to appeal to the people who vote Labour. And people who vote Labour,
of course, yeah.
The Labour Party picked up votes in aspect of their attitude towards Brexit. Yeah?
Yeah, but I don't think they did. Like, I think Labour didn't really have a position on Brexit. Now, this is one thing that I say Corbyn played actually quite well in the election. Obviously, keeping in line with my stance that he shouldn't have said anything at all about tuition fees if he wasn't sure. Labour didn't say much about Brexit at all. They kept quite quiet about it.
I don't think they kept quiet.
And I think that the reason why
Corbyn was very open to debate in the campaign.
He was open to debate, but it wasn't. You know, they were a bit cagey with the press about it. But I think that was a good decision for Corbyn to make, because obviously he didn't know what direction. That, you know, obviously the Labour Party itself, he wasn't 100% sure on Britain's policy surrounding Brexit at the time. Now, obviously, some would call that bad leadership, but to be honest with you, I'd say it's better to say nothing at all if you're not sure than to say something and just go with it if you're not sure. Like, that's just a daft move for everybody involved.
But
I think that Corbyn played that right.
Although Corbyn wasn't explicitly clear on Brexit, I do have to make the point. There were certain things, fundamental questions on the EU that the Labour Party was very clear on in the election. The Labour Party stood on a platform in the election that was on a manifesto that was to leave the single market.
They did. Well, they didn't during the election, did they? I thought they were always quite quiet about it. They always said they wouldn't threaten Europe and all of that. I have
exactly the same as May wanted: access to the single market.
I have something here that'll disprove that. I think doesn't. That's Corbyn not saying that personally. I know this is Nicola Sturgeon, but I'll show you now. Like, listen, if you just listen to this video that I'm going to play for you now, it's Corbyn's "We Won't Threaten Europe" interview with the BBC from the 3rd of May 2017.
But listen to what he says towards the end. I'm hoping the video will actually load up, which it doesn't want to. Oh no, here we go. Okay, just listen to this.
We will negotiate a Brexit that works for all, for the many, not the few.
I can't hear.
We won't threaten Europe on the way into Brexit. And above
can you
all,
not hear it?
in this election...
No.
Dude, oh yeah, you'll only get the...
I can play it on my end as well, though. So
yeah, look it up at your end. It's just type in Jeremy Corbyn, Labour won't threaten Europe. In fact, I can send you the link.
I've got it. I think I've got it. Yeah. Right, go on. Yeah, right, I'll just play it.
Copy him. If it isn't exactly the same one, there's the actual link there. I've just put it in the chat.
I've got it.
So let me put that back on.
Negotiate a Brexit that works for all, for the many, not the few. We won't threaten Europe on the way into Brexit. And above all, in this election campaign, we'll put forward a proposal and a plan for Britain which is about dealing with inequality and injustice, ensuring a proper health service, properly funded education service, proper social care, and a housing policy that ensures everyone gets somewhere to live.
That's your vision for Brexit. The point that Mrs May made today was that you're not capable of delivering that. She portrayed you as a risk to the country if you were leading Brexit negotiations.
The risk to this country is a government that sets up megaphone diplomacy ahead of serious negotiations, that threatens to walk away from those talks if they don't go their way. Our view is you work with people. You don't threaten at the start. You start with the idea and the aim and the intention of reaching an agreement of tariff-free trade access to Europe and protection of very important workers, consumer and environmental rights that we have in this country.
Did you hear what I heard in the last 5 seconds?
You just talked over the last 5 seconds!
What? Oh, have you just missed the ending?
You've just done it again! Shut up! I'm trying to listen to the ending! Right, shut.
Am I safe?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
I think that proves my point, if anything.
Well, how does it? He says he wants tariff-free trade. Like, that's basically being in the single market, and also the whole, you know...
Right, get out. Tariff-free trade access. Yeah,
which the EU were only going to agree to if he stayed in the single market.
That is, you're wrong. What he means by tariff-free trade access is quite clear. It's exactly the line that Theresa May used. It means leaving the single market with having tariff-free access.
Yeah, but the EU came out and did say that if we did, you know, there wouldn't be any tariff-free trade if you didn't stay in the single market. Like, that was always on the table. That was always the stance with the negotiations.
But as Theresa May hadn't changed her stance in that. What we want and what Theresa May wants and what Corbyn has exactly said the same. This is not a unique point. This is not Corbyn sounding anything like he wants us remaining in the single market. This is as clear as you can get. Tariff-free trade access.
Yeah, but that was never going to be on the table. That was never going to be on the table. That. And Corbyn knew that. Corbyn knew that at the time.
Can you give me a source that that's not on the table? Free access to the single market.
It was never going to be on the table. I'm sure Michael Barnier said it. I think.
Give me that exact quote, because I'm pretty confident that's a load of crap.
It could have been Guy Verhofstadt. That might have been it.
It's not happened. It has not happened.
God, I can't type.
Just by typing that in, I'll make a few other points on that little video that you just shared. Hey, number one, megaphone diplomacy, I would completely agree with. We're not going to get anywhere in these EU negotiations if we start making bold claims, start making big boy kind of shouts to people. the negotiations, which means when we go in, it's going to be a hostile environment. We have to make sure, as Corbyn said, we need to go in with an aim, a plan, strategy, and make sure, we're working together. The final thing I would say is he ends it on the best point that is never made by Conservatives. Protecting workers' and consumers' rights has to be a priority in the process.
Again, though, that's all under EU law, again, isn't it? You know that, and I know that. So it's not a proper Brexit, is it, that you want and I want as you as a Leave voter wants anyway? Because you said you wanted completely out of the EU.
I do, but that doesn't mean things in the EU I want to get rid of. I want to stay. I want us to stay in the single market, not stay as a member, but have access to it. That's what I want. Leave the single market and have access. Yeah, I want that. There's certain things within the European Union that are fantastic. I want to keep the best bits.
Yeah, but you can't pick and choose with that argument, though. Like, this is what Corbyn leaving the single market has said. Like, I don't know why. Like, what do you make of his decision to leave then? Like, if you're defending him saying you want tariff-free trade access to the EU, then he must have flip-flopped somewhere if he's announced he's going to leave. And that's due to the fact that it would never have been on the table that the EU would have offered tariff-free trade access without
the protections. When he says he wants to protect workers' rights, what that means is he doesn't have to copy them. It doesn't mean that he's just keeping within European law, etc. It means when we are making independent law that we propose these pieces of legislation as a government, as a majority government. That's what you install. That's what he's saying, and that doesn't sound stupid.
Yeah, but why is he changed his mind on leaving the single market then? Like, that sounds to me that he wants to just stay in and have a soft Brexit, which you and I both know is not a Brexit. It's not leaving the EU.
When he says he wants tariff-free access, he's just clearly stating he wants to leave the single market and have access to it. That is fine. That is exactly what Brexit was about. There's no U-turn or anything. Corbyn's said that since the results of the election.
Yeah, but you know that if you stay in the single market, you still have to abide by all the EU's laws and regulations, no matter what they negotiate. That was the whole point of a soft Brexit. It doesn't work because all it does.
Can you stop saying this is a soft or light Brexit? Most people who voted Brexit want to leave the European Union, leave the single market, and have free trade access. All countries around the world, this was said many a time across the debate, and I'm going to make it clear again. All countries across the world can trade with the European Union, correct? Some of them have tariffs, some of them don't have tariffs. That doesn't mean they're a member, doesn't mean they have to abide by all European
laws. The only countries that don't have tariffs are either in the EEA or the EU.
Right, okay.
Those countries are all within Europe.
Okay, valid point. Growing across the world are free trade deals with
trading. All the rest of them trade with the WTO standards.
Can I finish a point? Okay, thank you. All across the world, free trade movements are growing. Example: the UK and the US want to strike a free trade deal. Okay, yeah. That free trade deals are happening all across the world. They're happening. Yeah, they're growing, and the EU will look to do the same. Okay, so it's no surprise when the UK, which is the EU's biggest export, they're going to want free trade access, okay? And we're going to want free trade access to them. The German car industry will not want a tariff on it. Very clear.
The German car industry will get hurt if it does. Merkel knows that.
It's not an obscure kind of policy, yeah? It's not an obscure policy at all to suggest that at all.
So do you agree then with Corbyn's...
No one who voted Leave voted for us to leave the single market and not trade with it. That would be ludicrous. They would be mad. No one voted that. People voted to leave the single market, but to trade and have free tariff access. That's what we want. That's what I think is realistic. And Corbyn said that from the start, and I think Corbyn's completely right on this.
Well, why is he saying now then we're going to leave? If that's not what anybody wants.
That's what he wants. Theresa May wants to leave the single market.
Yeah, so does Corbyn.
Exactly. That's great. That's fantastic.
Yeah, but you're saying nobody wants to leave the single market, and also his voters agree.
No, I'm saying everyone wants... Listen to the wording. Everyone wants to leave the single market as a member, but have access to trade with the single market.
Yeah, but you can't trade... You can't have access to trade with the single market if you leave the single market. You're part of the larger market, which is the EEA. That's not
does
the
America,
single market. That's
does America
different.
not trade with the single market?
The
Just
EEA, they're not the same thing.
Does Canada trade with the single market?
It trades under WTO regulations, I thought, or have they made it free under Trudeau?
Canada doesn't.
Yeah, there's only a very recent development though under Trudeau. Like that's only happened in the last year.
It's exactly the point I'm trying to make. I'm saying that free trade agreements are growing across the world. They're the new thing because it allows businesses to, trade freer, trade cheaper, and that's what they want. So if we go to the EU and say we want a free trade deal, the businesses will put pressure on Europe to agree to it, and leaving the single market, that's what we want, because we want to have that access to trade with the rest of the world. We can trade better on our own than we can with the European Union, because we have freer access. We don't have to listen to what 27 countries want. We have to just cater to what Britain needs.
Yeah,
and
but bear in mind, though, those 27 countries can make decisions for us in that regard, but we have no seat at the table. Like, the EU... Like,
no, they can't! Not anymore! Not anymore! And may I just make one point clear, okay? Now, some people seem to have this bizarre thing where they believe that us trading with the European Union and abiding to their rules is some weird, bizarre concept that is so terrible and we've never seen it before. May I remind you, when we make cars and we sell them to countries that drive on the right-hand side of the road or left-hand side of the road, we don't turn around and go, but we need to join them as a nation because we don't abide by all their laws. No, we just deal with it because it's a basic fact of business. And people...
Yeah, but it's what the EU wants. Like, why we state with being the single market, we have to abide by all of their laws for trade. Like, that is exactly what they're doing, and it's exactly what will remain happening, as they've said on countless occasions.
And what's bad with that? That's my point. What is bad with that? Tell me.
Because we've literally all we've done then by going into Brexit is give up our seat at the table in making those decisions and let the other 27 countries run riot and we don't get a say. That's all we've done. And that's what a soft Brexit will eventually boil down to.
Let me just put this as in my opinion, okay, right? So you're saying, they're going to run riot over the UK? Okay, so
well, we won't be able to stop them if they want to. So
does the fact that India trades with the EU that mean
single market though?
The EU run riot over them? No, they don't.
Because it's not in the single market, and it's not bound by those laws. It's trading through the WTO.
Right, exactly. And this is what I'm trying to say, okay? We would naturally, if we left the European Union, be bound to be automatically be trading under WTO rules. Yeah, that would be the standard.
2.3%.
You can make a deal. This is what I'm trying to explain. Yeah, you can make a deal to have free trade. Yeah, free trade, and agree terms to the trading conditions. Right?
Yeah.
Don't just think that Britain's just going to sit there and go, okay, so we all agree on we're going to have a free trade agreement, right? Well, there you go, EU, you make all the rules. That's not how an agreement works.
Yeah, but
it doesn't take one day.
Yeah, but bear in mind, though, Europe does hold all the cards with this sort of thing.
What did they? Really? Come on.
Give me a minute. Let me explain myself here. Right. There's
all the cards, all of them.
They don't hold all the cards. Even I know that. They need British industries to stay afloat. It's like if Britain leaves, it can leave a festering wound in the EU that can rip it apart. Even I know that. Like, but the point I'm making is, if we capitulate to them in a negotiation and we do give them that kind of power, it'll be as if we never left. Except all we've done is weaken our position within the EU. That's all we've done by voting to leave. And that's just not good for Britain.
It's fantastic for Britain, you're right. It's not just good, it's fantastic.
What, by weakening our own position within Europe is a good thing for Britain? How does that work?
It's fantastic, and let me explain why. Okay? Europe will not listen to us as a political entity. Just bear with me, this is quite a big point.
Yeah, the EU don't listen to anybody as a political entity.
Right. Really? No, they do. Because Britain has little say when it comes to the table, often get downvoted, okay?
Yeah, and
I'm making a big point, you'll have to bear with me, okay? And get downvoted because the majority of voting within the European Union is based on, the majority goes to the Euro trading bloc, which means that obviously anything to do with the pound in relation to that or furthering that just doesn't work. But taking this as a wider point, why is it good that Britain will leave the table on the rules that are being made in terms of the EU? It means that, one, Britain can negotiate on its own free trade agreements with the rest of the world, which will mean more trade agreements, faster made, and more catered to what Britain needs as an economy. That can only be a good thing. Yeah?
That is a good thing.
Secondly, why is it that specifically good in when Britain sits down with the EU and is making a specific trade agreement for them in terms of free trade, right? They're going to get no say on the rules. Well, quite frankly, that's rubbish, because when you sign a free trade agreement, this is what I'm trying to say, you are not a member of the single market. So when the EU starts changing rules or making rules, they do not affect the UK-EU deal, because they have a specific agreement. And therefore, if rules in terms of trading with the EU the EU starts changing how it wants cucumbers shaped, Britain has the opportunity to accept or decline.
Yeah.
And that's it.
How willing
does that give? That gives Britain 10 times more power. 10 times more power.
Well, 27 times more power if you look at it the right way.
I like that. I like that. I like that comment a lot.
I think you would. But I've got a question for you here now, though. How willing do you think Europe is going to be to make that deal? How willing do you think that those negotiations will occur in that way?
Here's one of the biggest ones, and I made this today actually when I was speaking to my brother, and I said this, okay? Throughout Brexit, I hear this claim of good deal. Yeah? Good deal. You know, what's a good deal, what's a bad deal?
Yeah.
Okay? Now, something being good is a matter of perspective. We can all agree on that. So I think what's fun or whatever, you know, I watch Doctor Who. We watch for Doctor Who. We think that's a good program. Yeah? Other people think it's a crap program. So good is a perspective. Okay? Now, what I hear when Theresa May says, I want to leave the single market and I want to stop freedom of movement, yeah, is people say, well, Europe's not going to allow that because that's too good a deal. Because, you know,
but it's not too good a deal. It's no deal.
Just wait a minute. No, because they're not going to. That's not a good deal for the EU. Yeah. Well, let me.
No deal, though, isn't it?
Just let me finish. Just let me finish. Okay. So I said that good was about perspective, right? So to the EU, because obviously they're claiming they're not going to let us have a good deal. A good deal to the EU is therefore classed as no freedom of movement, no access to the single market. Well, I put to you this question, Fairhurst. If the EU believes that a good deal is having no access to the single market and no freedom of movement, then what is the EU and what does it like? Because if it doesn't like freedom of movement or the single market, then what the fuck does it like?
When did I say that? That the EU does.
I'm asking you that question because
I'm not following your logic here.
Right, what try explain. What is good is a matter of perspective, okay?
Yeah.
What Britain wants, as in freedom of leaving the single market, yeah, having no freedom of movement.
Britain wants.
Just listen, just follow it. This is why you might not understand. Just listen, yeah? Right. Leaving the single market, having no freedom of movement, is being classed as a good deal.
For Britain, yes. For Britain.
For Britain, okay.
Not for the EU.
Right, okay. So if the EU, if that's seen as a good deal for Britain, why would the EU surely think that's a great deal?
No, the EU wouldn't agree with us on that. They wouldn't agree with Britain on what a good deal is. They're more determined to shore up their own position, as Britain is determined to shore up its own position by voting to leave. Like, that's what the EU wants, as opposed to what Britain wants.
So the EU, a bad deal for a country.
A bad deal would be Britain leaving completely.
Yeah, a bad deal in the EU's perspective, a bad deal is having the no freedom of movement.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
It's a terrible. Wait, what?
Yeah, no, sorry. Yes, you're right. So the EU thinks a bad deal for a country is having no freedom of movement, no access to the single market. Yeah.
it's a bad deal from their perspective. It's not bad for Britain necessarily. Like, it could be good from our perspective.
Exactly. So if the EU thinks that having no freedom of movement is bad, and has no access to the freedom of movement is bad, access single market is bad, then why is what Britain wants being seen as a good deal? Having
Because
no
it's
freedom
coming
of
from our
movement.
perspective. You've got to put yourself in the right perspective here. You've got to, like, looking at this from Britain's perspective, us coming out of the single market and us getting control of our more control over our immigration policy from the EU is a good thing in terms of our national sovereignty. It's not a good thing for the EU because it's ceding power to us.
Yeah, no, but the EU doesn't see that as good, does it? The EU doesn't see
EU
it.
never will.
Exactly. So why are they sort of saying that? Britain's getting a too good a deal when they're having no freedom of movement. Surely that's a bad deal for Britain, having no freedom of movement.
No, it's a bad deal for the EU because they're ceding power to us that they previously had. Like, that's all there is to it with these negotiations. The EU doesn't want to give up the power, the power it has in making British laws. It doesn't want to because it's a technocracy.
Okay, right. We're getting a bit off topic, but I just want to sort of say in conclusion of
to give up power.
Freedom of movement kind of thing, right? Not freedom of movement, the leaving the single market. Labour is clear, they want to leave the single market. The members, however, are quite clearly divided, if not in preference for remaining. What does this show, in my opinion? It shows that Corbyn is willing to listen to the British people. He's not just going to listen to his own party, he's going to listen to everyone. And that is what a Prime Minister does. A Prime Minister doesn't just listen to who they have on their side, they listen to everyone. What it also shows is that Labour have some kind of brain, they have big ambitions for Britain, they see Britain trading with the rest of the world, and that can only be a good thing. Only be a good thing.
Well, my stance on it differs here. Like, personally, I think that Labour is out of touch with its main core voter base, and that has been from somebody that comes from a core voting Labour area.
You're not a core Labour voter. Neither am I.
I'm not. No, my area where I live in the northwest of England has always voted Labour, and it always will do probably till the end of time or the Labour Party collapses. But from somebody like my point of view, again, like from somewhere that, you know, a Labour safe seats, like obviously I didn't vote Labour in the last election, but that's beside the point. Like from somebody that's, you know, seen Labour election after Labour election after Labour election in their local constituency, it's again a massive slap in the face that Corbyn is doing for me. He's not listening to the people that are always voting for him, and I think that that's going to make, you know, it might cost Labour in the future. I think that Corbyn, I know he needs to listen to other perspectives as well to be a good leader, but he should never forget where he comes from either. And I think that that's something that he needs to be very careful of in the future when he is moving into these debates. Anyway, I think that's pretty much a very natural closing statement for us both there, isn't it? Do we want to move on? Where do you want to move on to now?
Brexit's amazing. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah, Brexit is a good thing. We can both agree on that because obviously I've gone full circle from a Remainer
but
to
interestingly, the point I made about Corbyn not appealing to his roots. In fact, interesting enough, National Socialist Workers' Party, etc., were in favour of leave.
National Socialist Workers' Party.
just give me. Oh no, that's Nazis. Sorry, that's Nazis.
That came out very badly for you.
I meant the Socialist Workers' Party, not the National. That's Nazis. Okay, shut up. Okay.
Do you know what? Do you think we should just get on to about
anti-Semitism to his Nazi roots?
We've said that.
No, right, anyway, no. What I'm trying to say is obviously the Socialist Workers' Party. Now I've got it right.
There you go.
They were in favour of leave, so maybe Corbyn is actually appealing to his roots.
Oh, it's tickled me.
Because quite interestingly, the far right and far left were for leave. It was the middle ground that were for.
Well, the centre is obviously
boring middle grounders. Those Blairites. Those. I hate it when I hear people who go, "I love Corbyn," and then they go, "But I voted Remain." If you actually love Corbyn's principles, there is no way.
Oh yeah, he's really pro-leave. He is actually quite pro-leave.
Since Corbyn came into the idea of becoming popular and trying to win public opinion, he became a Remainer. Before that, look at every single piece of legislator he voted on. Against. Diane Abbott, against. John McDonnell, against. Their true opinions, quite clearly, are...
Yeah, there is a very strong left-wing argument to leave. Like, the Labour Party used to be more pro-leave. Like, it was, you know, it's completely flipped from the first.
Tony Benn was for leaving the European Union. He never wanted to.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's completely flipped. Like, it's completely flipped this last, like, you know, in the 40 years since the first referendum, because it was Labour that called it. Labour wanted out. They said that we came into the EU illegally. Like, the Tories made mistakes, and Ted Heath rushed the process of ascension and rushed it through Parliament without the will of the people. That was their argument, and it's something that Corbyn has stuck to, I think.
What I'd urge is, obviously, we're going to move on from this debate.
Yeah,
anyone who's interested in the Labour approach to leaving, which is something that I'm really involved in, message me, and I'm happy to sort of give you why.
Yeah, just put it in the comments to us.
Or check out, just search Labour Leave and go on their site. It's a really good site. They've got videos, etc. Kate Hoey on there, Gisela Sue, etc. Those kind of figures. And look at why the true socialists should be for leaving the European Union.
I'm
but
sure
anyway,
you'll leave a link down in the comments, won't you, Chris? I think.
Yeah, I will do.
Yeah, if you want to talk to us, obviously. In fact, I might check the chat. Actually, I haven't. Can you see the chat, Chris?
I did check, but we had about 4 viewers the last time I checked, which was marvellous.
Somebody called Charles Farrar, who's in the chat.
Charlie Farrar, he's
about...
fantastic. Charlie Farrar is my a uni mate of mine, legend.
Oh yeah, he's added me, actually. I think he added me the other day on Facebook.
Yeah, he's a legend, yeah.
There you go. But yeah, he's asking about Venezuela, actually. So do you want to move on to anti-Semitism?
Get out! He's asking about Venezuela.
Oh yeah, he's asking about Venezuela. I was going to say, so what do you want to go on about? What do you want to talk about now then, Chris? We can either talk about Venezuela, or after that very unfortunate Freudian slip from you, we could talk about anti-Semitism.
Maybe we should say that. We'll save that to the end. We'll save the Venezuela till the end.
Yeah, because I really want to go to town on Venezuela, actually.
Yeah. I love Corbyn and the EU. Get out, Charlie K. Corbyn is bae, but not the EU. The EU is disgusting, horrible, and mean.
It's not the right situation, is it? So what do we want to go on about next, then? We could either go...
Why don't we do Venezuela, because Charlie wants to hear our stance on Venezuela. You know what, I'm going to be honest, I haven't really had a lot of look into Venezuela, so I'm going to let you sort of lead the discussion on this, and I'll sort of pop in with what I sort of think as we go along.
That sounds to me like we're going to Venezuela.
Yeah, we are.
Alright, we'll jump in. Well, obviously, this has all come out quite recently, to be honest with you. Well, it's not been a massively recent thing. Like, Venezuela has been what you could term a socialist country for the last since 1998, with the election of Hugo Chavez to power to power. But obviously, Hugo Chavez has died now, and his successor Maduro has taken over, and in the whole spat in the press, like, obviously the country has been in a lot of turmoil economically. It's suffering from hyperinflation. I think it's currently at 600% inflation rate. So obviously people are quite poor, people are impoverished in Venezuela, and there's been a lot of political upheaval around the recent elections, which a lot of people believe have been fixed, and to be honest, I think I have to agree that they were. It's very clear that Maduro did fix the election, so he would be elected again, and obviously it's the same with Chavez as well. Before him, they've had 20 years of the same government, and Jeremy Corbyn. How this all links to Corbyn is he was a big. He celebrated socialist dictators before, like Castro, and like when Castro died, obviously he called him a champion of social justice, and he's been a very major supporter of Chavez as well, of Chavez's regime, and he's refusing to condemn Maduro and the violence in Venezuela. Just go back on the... I'm just saying, like, the thing that sets the scene for all of this with Jeremy is...
You're not coming through. Do you just keep talking, mate? I can't hear you at the moment. It's alright, keep talking.
You might have to go back on the stream and look.
That could probably do it. Because I know I'm coming through on there because I can hear myself in my headphones. But yeah, Jeremy Corbyn is refusing to condemn what's going on in Venezuela, despite calls from his party to do so. Like as this article from the Independent says, as the article in the Independent says, I can perfectly well understand why Jeremy Corbyn, who seems to me to be a rather proud and stubborn man, is reluctant to dance every time the Murdoch press or the Daily Mail tells him to. He owes them nothing, and he's shrewd enough to know the games they play. So when they call on him to condemn what's happening in Venezuela in the name of socialism, he goes all zen and ignores them and hopes the whole thing will go away. Well, of course it won't, and it is difficult to exaggerate the scale of the political and economic crisis that this benighted country is living through. There's talk of civil war. If this was some tin-pot American-sponsored dictatorship, Corbyn and Emily Thornberry would be firing off letters to Number 10 demanding sanctions and an international arrest warrant over the bastard persecuting his own people. Pardon my language there. I know that you like to swear on this stream, Chris, but I try and keep myself above that.
What's that? Sorry.
I just swore, so I just swore for the first time on YouTube.
Bastard! There you go. I said it for you.
I've already said it anyway. But yeah, not President Maduro in plucky Venezuela though. With the arbitrary arrest of opposition politicians, police abuse, subhuman prison conditions, and immunity from the security forces, no to Corbyn. None of that seems to matter because Maduro told Donald Trump and the Yankees to go home. Corbyn, please listen. Democracy. I won't. Actually, no. I think I can end it there.
Okay. Yeah. I've had a quick look at these situations.
Yeah, Corbyn's,
so I've got a few opinions, but you keep going.
Like, obviously, the situation in Venezuela is terrible. Like, if any country is considering civil war, the president of the country is arresting his political opponents and treating them as political prisoners. You can't describe that as anything other than a as an authoritarian nation, as a dictatorship. And the fact that Corbyn won't condemn it is, I think, very, very damning of Corbyn and what he stands for. Like, if he's just because they share the same ideology doesn't mean he can't condemn Maduro for what he's doing, unless he believes that it's the right and good thing. And this comes back again to his stance on Castro being a champion of social justice. Again, Castro brought terrible plight to the people of his country. Like Cuba is in. Like, the people of Cuba lived under very cruel conditions under Castro. And, this wasn't just down to their economic situation or anything like that. Like, forced to work, forced labour, from a young age. I think he also, he imprisoned, he's imprisoned political prisoners and also discriminated against other, political opponents and also members of the LGBT community, I believe, as well. To a certain
something about gays. Woo!
Yeah, you know about Castro, don't you? Am I right in thinking that, Chris? Did Castro did I think he did. Did he? He had. I think he was prejudiced, wasn't he, against the LGBT community, wasn't he?
Who, Castro?
Yeah.
What, prejudice against LGBT?
Yeah, I think he was. I think there's a quote from him. I'm going to try and look it up, actually. But, yeah, like, Corbyn, and I think it's quite an interesting... But what the point I'm making is, these... Like, if Corbyn says he's against all of these things of what he's saying, why isn't he condemning them? He should be condemning them publicly, and he isn't. Despite calls from his own party, despite calls from his own members, of the members of the party outside of the cabinet, outside of Westminster, he's not condemning these people for what they're doing, and what they're doing is wrong. So why isn't he? And that just, the only reason that I can explain it as is because they're socialist dictators and he is a socialist himself. He has to stand in solidarity with them. But
I'll come in here. Like,
I was going to. Don't I just finish that?
Finish off. Go on.
That ideology, in my opinion, should not stand above cruel, condemning cruel acts. Ideology should never stand above that. And I think that Corbyn, what he's doing there, is putting his ideology before the plight and suffering of these people, and I disagree with it completely. and I think that it's a big reason that people aren't voting for Jeremy. It's one of the biggest reasons that I wouldn't vote for Jeremy Corbyn, because he won't condemn stuff like this. And I know that Theresa May does exactly the same thing, and it's a reason why I wouldn't vote for her either. I think that both that's obviously two politicians being as bad as each other, in my opinion, because they're both doing the same thing. Like, May won't condemn the Saudis, but Corbyn won't condemn Maduro. You know, like, it's that point I'm trying to make. Like, if you think it's wrong for Theresa May not to condemn the Saudis, it's wrong because she agrees with her ideology. It's also wrong for Corbyn not to condemn this. But anyway, I'll let you go in now, Chris. What do you reckon on this issue? What do you think?
Lost you.
Come on, you come in. Just let me know when your signal reconnects. My laptop is really hot as well. That's really bad. Yeah. Can you hear me now, Chris?
Hello?
Can you hear me now?
Fairest!
Yeah.
Sorry, you're completely gone.
Can you not hear me on the other end of your Skype call?
I can hear you now.
Have you got me now?
Yeah.
Alright, well, what do you reckon on Venezuela then, Chris?
Okay, yeah, so obviously, like I said, I'm not massively cool on Venezuela, but, I do know bits and pieces about it. And what I'm going to make is quite a clearly neither me or you is going to sit here and defend what's going on in Venezuela. Quite frankly, it's disgusting, it's horrible, it's not what should be going on. Killing people who oppose your views is never something. That's what Muslims tend to do. And I don't agree.
You could have worded that a little bit better.
Okay, it's what radical Islamic extremists do, or what any other left. I don't know what the leftists want us to describe them as now.
Yeah, true.
And what peace-loving Saudi Arabians. Anyway, whatever. Getting back to the topic of Venezuela. Sorry. Obviously, we both think it's disgusting. You shouldn't, kill anyone who has a different view to you. Obviously, we're big advocates of free speech. And I would actually agree with a lot of the premise you've said. Corbyn needs to condemn this. And I want to make it absolutely clear, as someone who is clearly, you've seen from earlier in the channel, would describe themselves as a socialist, as a fan of Jeremy Corbyn. This is not what socialism is about. When we say he has a similar ideology, he claims he has a similar ideology, but the fact that Corbyn needs to stand out and prove that he doesn't. Stand out, condemn this, and prove that he doesn't have a similar ideology. Now, I'm going to make two quick points as to why Corbyn one quick point is why Corbyn might not have gone out and condemned this. He is currently on holiday, which might be one reason.
He is in Croatia at the minute.
Yeah, but that might be one. He's probably partying and clubbing because he just loves the youth. It might be one reason why he hasn't condemned it. And secondly, I will say that this article claims Thornberry hasn't said anything. She has, and she has condemned it and has asked for sanctions to be made against Venezuela, which I will correct. And that is an important point because it does show that Corbyn is not just the forefront of the Labour Party. There's other big figures, and they're women, big, social justice warriors are like that. And they have condemned this. The Labour Party have condemned this. So that's an important point to make.
I know, but Corbyn, it'll be interesting to see what will happen when he comes back from his holiday in Croatia.
He's going to come out and condemn it. Let's not be stupid. But I will also make this point. One reason that Corbyn might not condemn it as well is this. The media twist everything you bloody say. If Corbyn comes out and condemns Maduro, they'll start
say that he's backtracking on everything he's ever said.
Corbyn is socialist. Corbyn has right-wing roots and all this. It'll just be like, no.
Yeah, but that'll just be press. That everybody would just shake that off as being retarded. When
Corbyn gets back from his nice holiday in Croatia, he needs to condemn this. He needs to come out and publicly condemn this. I would completely agree, and I would reiterate that this isn't what anyone in a liberal democracy or who believes in socialism believes in. This is not. He doesn't hold similar beliefs to Corbyn, and Corbyn knows that, and Corbyn should stamp and say, you know what, this is crap.
I know, but do you think? I'm just wondering why he hasn't said something about this already. Like,
He's in Croatia.
I know, but he hasn't been in. When did he leave for Croatia? I think that was only this week, wasn't it?
Well, okay, right. Can we just
this
wait a
happened?
minute?
Actually, no. To be fair, he could have been in Croatia on Thursday.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
I'm not going to be like.
Okay. Wait a minute.
Sergeant Detective on this.
We have a really nice comment on this little stream, and I do want to make a video on this. I'm not sure whether it'll be just me or with Fairhurst.
Oh, just on the chat.
Because I've just got called for having casual Islamophobia. Okay.
Message retracted as well.
Islamophobia. Okay, Charlie Farrer. Now that is a load of rubbish. Okay. Yeah, I love Muslim people. Can I just make this clear? Because I don't want to be accused as an Let me just spend just 1 minute, I promise, and we'll get back to the topic. I'm not Islamophobic. I know Muslim people. They're lovely people. The majority of Muslims are not radical. The majority of Muslims believe in love, peace, etc., whatever. Yeah? However, people who do believe in Islam, Islamists, as I will define them, which is Islamists is the belief in fundamentalism and in Sharia and the laws of Islam. They do blow themselves up. They push gays off building and they're disgusting. They're horrible and they are to do with the religion of Islam. Okay? Not even what would be classed as radical Islamic, but Sharia law says that women's verdict should be half that of a man. No, I think that sucks. I think everyone in Western liberal society should think that's
Sharia law is wrong.
I am not an Islamophobic. If challenging ideas and challenging beliefs makes me Islamophobic, then actually I probably am. But that's not Islamophobia.
Exactly.
That's
an idea should never be
I'm not
free from criticism. Should never be free from criticism.
Some reason we seem to think that challenging the beliefs of Islam makes you Islamophobic. Well, quite frankly, if challenging the beliefs of a book, Quran, that states that somehow Muhammad is a prophet when he raped women, enslaved children,
and he flew off on a big flying horse as well. Remember that?
And waged war on thousands of innocents of people.
And did it on the back of a flying horse.
Yeah. So sorry to go off that track, but I am not Islamophobic. I do not endorse Islamophobia. I did make a slight little joke, which maybe might out saying Muslims blow themselves up. They don't. Islamists blow themselves up because they believe they're going to be a martyr. And
well,
actually,
do you know where the origin of the term comes from? Islamophobia. Do you know where it comes from?
It comes from some bullshit kid. I don't know.
No, it comes from the Muslim Brotherhood. It comes from the Muslim Brotherhood. That's where the term actually originates from. If you look it up.
Anyway, should we get back on?
Anyway, yeah, we'll go back onto the topic now.
Someone mentioned Moggmentum. We are discussing that in the next video,
yes,
by the way.
That is next week's stream. I'm gonna be talking about my favourite topic and favourite meme at the moment, Moggmentum. Because I am enjoying all the Mog memes at the moment. I think they've been quite funny. So obviously, it'll be a more like, I know we've done this as a bit more of a serious debate, but I think I want to make it a bit more shitposty. The next one. Because obviously I'm just going to be showing loads of Mog memes. I think it'll be quite a bit of fun. What do you say to that, Chris? Do you reckon we should make it a bit more shitposty next week?
Yeah, I agree. Like, that'd be really fun.
I think we've been a bit at each other's throats over this one, to be honest. In some cases, I think we've been a bit at each other's throats. But I think we're still learning how to do this. It's only our second go at it, so we're still coming together.
Anyway, I think we're pretty much agreed on Venezuela. Corbyn needs to come out and condemn this.
He does need to come out and condemn this, because if he doesn't, it just makes him look like he's defending an ideology that is doing things that are indefensible, and you can't do that. It's bad leadership.
Right, can you continue? I'm just emptying to the toilet.
Okay. I think we should move it on now then to. I was going to move it on to Corbyn's cabinet picks, but I think. How long's the stream been going on for now? That's what I want to check. I think we've been doing this for about 1.5. It's nearly 1.5 hours now. Normally we make these 1.5 hours long, so I think we're gonna just have to do anti-Semitism. I think I'm gonna leave John McDonnell for later, because I think I want this to be more about Corbyn and what's going on. I'll leave the link to the Guido Fawkes article I just closed in the description. If you want to read about John McDonnell and his stance on Marxism, it's there for you. But I think we're going to move on to our final topic, which has got to be anti-Semitism within the Labour Party. So when Chris comes back from his trip to the water closet, We'll be right back. I'm just going to check the chat. Hopefully Mr. Farrar is satisfied with Chris's answer to his comment. And we've got Comrade Chamberlain there about Moggmentum. And we've got 3 people watching who have been there the entire time, I think. So thank you very much for watching. Hope you're enjoying the content, and I hope you subscribe. Also, if you want to leave down in the description who do you think won the debate, I think it's... I'm probably shooting myself in the foot here by saying I think Chris has argued a bit more effectively than I have in this debate, but I think I've made some good points. I think that's fair to say. But yeah, if you want to leave down in the comments, if you've got this far, who do you think's made some good, who do you think's made the good points and where the good points have been made? Then by all means, please do, and obviously we'll answer those and add addendums to what we were saying, because obviously we're doing this live, so obviously we've made a few mistakes and a few other things we've gotten wrong, quotes and data and things, so we'll add those later. I'm just waiting for Chris to get back now. That sounds like it.
Hello?
Hey Chris. I've decided we're coming up to about the 1.5 hour.
I can't hear you, sorry.
Get your headset on then. Well, whatever you're using. Are you there? Can you hear me? Sounds like he's running himself a bath. Either that or he's just flushed the loo.
Hello?
Hey Chris.
Hey, how are we doing?
Alright. I've decided I'm going to skip over Corbyn's cabinet picks because obviously we're coming up to about the 1.5 hour mark now. So I think we should just go over anti-Semitism in the Labour Party quickly and then we'll call it a night, I think. Because it's...
For some reason you've gone again.
Are you? Can you hear me on the stream? Or can you... Have you got me back?
Hello?
You there?
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Hello?
I can hear myself echoing. I don't know if it's...
Yeah, right, okay. Just
have you got me
getting
now?
slight bits of you through now.
Signal, innit? I think we need to try Google Handout.
Oh!
Google... Have you got me there?
Right, are we on anti-Semitism?
Yeah. I'm going to skip over the cabinet picks because we're coming up to about the 1.5 hour mark now. We're probably past it now, actually.
Okay, cool. Right, can I just...
So let's go over anti-Semitism quickly.
Shall I kick off?
Yes, if you'd like.
Okay, cool. Well, I'll just give a bit of background to the anti-Semitism debate so people understand where this has come from. So first of all, before Ken Livingstone obviously got into the debate, the first person who got involved with that was Naz Shah, who's an MP for Labour. And it originated because she shared something on Facebook. It was basically it was like a funny picture, and there was a quotation that said, the Middle East will again be peaceful without foreign intervention, and it suggested that basically all the Israelis were getting transported to the US, and suggested that that would solve all the problems. And of course she got accused of being an anti-Semite, and Ken Livingstone came to Naz Shah's aid and made the comment that when Hitler won his election in 1932, he said the Jews should be moved to Israel, and that Hitler was a Zionist. And obviously got banned from the party by Rule 2.18, whatever, and he was banned for making grossly detrimental comments.
Yeah, but let's be honest though, it's not the only crazy comments he's made, is it?
Well, I've actually got a list of historical anti-Semitic comments that maybe can be considered anti-Semitic comments has been made by Ken Livingstone. So in 1984, as the leader of the Greater Council,
Greater London Council,
that's the one. He said that the board of deputy British Jews were dominated by reactionaries and neo-fascists. In 2004, as Mayor of London, probably the most anti-Semitical thing I think he could have done was inviting Yusuf al-Qaradawi, and he called Qaradawi progressive. Of course, Qaradawi, who's a defender of suicide bombings as a form of martyrdom, and also issued a fatwa saying that we should kill pregnant Israeli women. So really a progressive kind of figure that, you know, not really. So that's not a very good history there. No, and in 2005, Ken Livingstone told a Jewish journalist, Oliver Feingold, he told him that Oliver Feingold that he was just like a concentration camp guard. So he's got a very good history of being anti-Semitic. And I just want to make one point that follows on from that, is that a lot of time in the discussion you find that Corbyn has a problem with anti-Semitism. That is an incorrect mark. The Labour Party has problems with anti-Semitism.
Yes, I agree with that.
Why have these problems arisen? Because arguably Corbyn has taken steps to try and deal with them, and that's good. Revealing people and getting them kicked out is brilliant. It's fab. And I would say to Corbyn, keep going, because you're doing something right, because they all seem to be popping out of the closet.
Just going to another bit of a crazy Ken Livingstone moment as well over Venezuela this week. He also said the reason why socialism hasn't worked in Venezuela is because they didn't kill all the capitalists. That's another thing he said that you can add to the list of crazy Ken Livingstone quotes.
Yeah, he's just an idiot. And one of the interesting things is, of course, Ken Livingstone, there's a bit of debate about whether what he historically said is true or not. When I say a bit of debate, I mean everyone bar like 2 historians actually agree with him. Now, Ken Livingstone is quite renowned actually for liking to read a lot of books. And the book he's read is Zionism in the Age of Dictators, which was Lenny Brenner's book, published in 1984. Lenny Brenner, a historian, is countlessly disregarded by everyone for being an idiot. And he's read this and just taken it as the historical fact, which is rather amusing.
Well, does it take the Grand Zionist conspiracy to be legit? Like,
it's spelt with an I, but yes.
Yeah, American Trotskyist writer. I've got it up here.
Yeah, he's just an idiot. Yeah, what he's trying to argue, what he's citing really here, Marxist book there. Ken Livingstone cites the book. They're on about the Havara Agreement. Now, you must know a little bit about that. You like history. 1933, obviously, Hitler signed to facilitate Jews moving to Palestine.
It's there. I've got it here, yeah.
Yeah, but obviously, it's like complete rubbish. Like, yes, he did facilitate that, but let's not forget, like, how many actually moved? Not very many. And what actually happened, what was happening at that time.
Yeah, but a lot of functionalist historians with regards to the Nazis, like the functionalist side of the argument, will use the Havara Agreement as and take it as historical fact that, like, the Holocaust was never the intent from day one. It just ended up escalating into it, and it happened. Like, that's the functionalist.
Well, we all know if you ever read one line of Mein Kampf, that's a load of tosh.
Oh, I know. I've read one line of Mein Kampf. Believe me, the first 2 sentences are enough to convince you otherwise. In terms of the intentionalists. But no, the functionalist school is quite well respected in history when it comes to Nazi Germany. It's the more revisionist look out of the 2. Like, the intentionalists came first, for sure.
Well, no, I don't think this kind of this opinion on Hitler being a Zionist, especially, is
to
is
call
not
him a Zionist is completely ridiculous. A functionalist would never ever say that. They'd never say it.
But here's the debate. Here is the debate. Should Ken Livingstone have been banned from the Labour Party?
Yes, I think he should have been. But
should he have been banned from a year? Is that the correct punishment?
But going back here, I know that you like your stance on free speech here, Chris. I know that this is not something a public figure should say, but because obviously it's hateful speech. But would you ban somebody, even if they're a public figure in the public eye, on the basis of something they've said? Like, this I think is quite interesting, because you could go into a bit of free speech debate on this.
So obviously, like, I'm a massive advocate of free speech. I believe anyone should be entitled to say anything that they like. I believe no matter should be taken off the table in terms of free speech. this situation, I believe he should be banned and expelled from the Labour Party.
I agree,
Now,
actually.
Now,
Because
why
perspective,
do I give me a minute? Like, why do I believe he should be banned and expelled from the Labour Party? I believe he's completely entitled to say what he thinks. He's completely entitled to say Hitler was a Zionist. But is he entitled to be a member of a Labour Party? No, because the Labour Party has certain values, certain beliefs that holds to its core. If you disagree with them, you shouldn't be a member of it. Quite simple. He disagrees with it, he shouldn't be a member. End of discussion. But he should still be allowed to say what he wants. Like, absolutely. Like, you can keep saying Hitler's a Zionist all you like. You know, you're completely wrong, but I'll defend your right to say it.
Yeah. And I agree. I completely agree. Because, like, it's from the party's perspective, it's lowering the chances to win elections. And the only reason why parties exist, from the rational thesis, is that parties exist to win elections and seek power. That's their primary goal. And so for them not to do that and keep Ken Livingstone within the party is a terrible move for Labour, as it loses them numbers. It loses them votes and points on the polling board. So I think that I agree with you that I think Ken Livingstone should have been banned for those comments because they were off colour for the rest of the public. But I think he still should have had the right to say them, and he shouldn't be prosecuted for saying them.
No, I agree. He should definitely not be prosecuted.
I just thought I'd bring that up anyway. The free speech debate that might have been surrounding this, because it's. I know a lot of people have been saying, like, you know, it should be like there was like the backlash in the press towards this at the time. A lot of people were saying, you know, it should be on trial for hate speech, and I personally think that.
Well, there's a massive sort of debate. The current debates around this topic rely on two things that I wanted to say. One, well, not debate. The first thing I wanted to state, I'll obviously ask you the question that's for debate, but just want to make a point. There was a study done by the Community Security Trust that has found that in light between, you know, Corbyn's rise, anti-Semitism has grown to unprecedented levels. That's a quote. So it was 1,309 incidents nationwide in 2016. The previous highest was 1,182 in 2014.
Was this on the Spectator article?
It might be, yeah. So statistically, obviously, this is rising very bigly, and it's becoming a massive problem. But the question I want to debate with you, which I think relates to this topic, is: can you be an anti-Zionist and not anti-Semitic?
Well, that I did actually have quite an interesting conversation about this. Like, I've changed my stance on it very recently. Like, I thought you could be, but now I'm starting to go the other way and think you can't, because Zionism for some Jewish people is a core tenet of their faith, and that's what anti-Semitism is. It's discriminating against people that believe in Judaism, isn't it? And if certain people that believe in Judaism have that core tenet of the faith that they need a homeland, which is what Zionism is, then by being anti-Zionist is to discriminate against those Jews that believe in that. Now, obviously, that's not to say they all do, it's not to say they all don't, but I think that the argument can be made that it is anti-Semitic, because, and this also ties in as well to the situation of Israel and Palestine as well. Like, a lot of anti-Israel protesters will be seen, you know, burning Israeli flags and what have you, you know, support Palestine, free Palestine, but they'll call themselves anti-Zionists. Now, that's where I think the terminology is wrong. I think if there was no religious element to it, they'd just call themselves anti-Israel. They won't call themselves anti-Zionist. And I think that it's a very dangerous game of language again, where the term anti-Zionism is becoming it's becoming the commonplace term instead of anti-Israel, because it's like a dog whistle almost for the people on the far left and right that are truly anti-Semitic. It's bringing their politics into the mainstream again, and I think that it's a dangerous road to travel by calling it anti-Zionism.
So your conclusion is that you cannot be anti-Zionist without being anti-Semitic.
It's a difficult one. In terms of the Israel-Palestine debate, I'd say
you're doing a Corbyn. You're doing what you would describe as a Corbyn. It's a yes or no question.
Oh yeah, you're right. I am. Well, I'd say.
See how easy it is to do. See, sometimes
you just want to lure me into a trap with this. Well played. All right, I've lost you, Chris.
Yeah, hello.
Oh, you're there, you're there.
Yes or no? Can you be anti-Zionist and not be anti-Semitic? No, is your answer, yeah?
Well, what did you say? You can't be... I believe you can't be...
Stop Jeremy Corbyn!
No, I'm saying it now. I believe you can't... I believe that you cannot be anti-Semitic... they're one and the same. Like, if you're anti-Zionist, then you're anti-Semitic by default. There you go. That's my stance. There we go.
Okay, so
To an extent, yes.
My opinion is yes, you can. You can be anti-Zionist without being anti-Semitic. Yes, you can.
Yeah, but that's where I'd say, like, I suppose though we're getting into semantics here though. But like, I'd say if you're against Israel's policy on Palestine, but you're not against people who believe in Judaism and like against Jews, then you would describe yourself as anti-Israel, not anti-Zionist.
Well, no, because
it could just be a case of language.
Zionism, by definition, it's believing that Judaism is a religion and a nationality.
Yep.
Okay. Well,
Yeah,
first
like
of all,
Judaism
is not a nationality. Point one. Okay. Point two. Okay. Yeah. In terms of Zionism, yeah, Zionists believe fundamentally, yeah, that there should be no separation of church and state. Western liberalism argues against that.
Yeah.
And I'm not accusing all of Western society as being anti-Semitic.
Yeah, that's a good point, I suppose.
Like, there's certain... This is my point, like, obviously I'm a massive advocate of free speech, and I'm just going to say, I'm not anti-Zionist at all, like, I'm not. But what I will say is, again, like, I defend people who want to claim they're Zionist in being... Because there's certain aspects of that, like, the fundamental belief that church and state should be together, I fundamentally believe they should be separate.
Yeah, I agree. I believe in a secular state.
That makes me slightly anti-Zionist. Does that mean that, I'm an anti-Semite? I don't think so. I think
I don't know. Maybe I jumped the gun on it because I had this whole change of faith with regard to people using the term anti-Zionist.
I also think it's quite discriminatory as well.
Campaign.
I also think it's quite discriminatory, a concept that believes that any Jew from anywhere in the world can move to Israel and instantly, by law, by what Zionists want, become a citizen, but any other type of person, no. That's a bit discriminatory, if you ask me.
To be honest, it does have parallels with the whole, Greater Germany Lebensraum thing from... I know that's probably ridiculously offensive to say, but... Seriously, listen to it. Like, listen to the both the arguments again, and they sound very similar. Actually, that's a good point to make. But yeah, I think that like personally, my stance on it is like the reason why I came to this conclusion was in context of the Palestine of freeing Palestine and what have you.
Yeah.
Like, personally, if you're against what Israel is doing to Palestinians, then I'd say you're anti-Israel. I wouldn't say you're anti-Zionist. And I think that a lot of people are using that term incorrectly when it comes to that.
Like Islamophobia.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what I mean. And I think it's quite difficult. It's like the term's not being used for the correct reasons, and I think it's being used to, it's like you put a term in the public consciousness and people will push a debate around it. Like, if you say you're anti-Zionist, then it's actual anti-Semites will just come in under the radar and come up with something that's against Israel and just say, "Oh, I'm just anti-Zionist, me. I'm not an anti-Semite." They'll just hold their hands up and say that, and they'll get a free pass. And I think that's quite. I personally think that's quite scary. I think that, we should be using the correct terminology. We should be outlining our arguments correctly. And I know that if Adam Mossman is listening to me right now, he is going to be pitching a fit right now because he believes I don't do that, but I do. I actually do. We've got to be quite clear on what we're saying when we're saying it, and make sure there's no room for error in our context. That's where my stance on it comes from, anyway. I've lost you, Chris.
Hello?
I've got you back now. Are you there?
No, can't hear you.
Did you say something at the other end? Were you going to say something? Oh. Hang on, call's dropped. Work.
Hello?
Oh yeah, I've got you back now.
Yeah, I got you.
Whew. Well,
yes. Are we just going to do closing marks kind of thing?
Unless there's anything you want to add about like the use of language and the terms anti-Zionism and anti-Israel and how they might be being confused to the benefits of...
Yeah, like, I just think, again, like, you've not got to just sort of rephrasing from, like, I think our first stream, we eventually got into making this kind of conclusion. Again, like, you can't just whittle out labels are used far too much among the society to just disrupt and disembark debate. Now, Israel is doing some pretty disgusting things to the people who live in Palestine, and to be against Israel does not make you anti-Zionist, does not make you anti-Semitic. Let's make that absolutely clear.
Yeah, that's true.
And like I said about, that's why it relates to Islamophobia. Anyone who argues anything against the religion of Islam does not make them Islamophobic. Yeah. It makes them a rational being who thinks that things suck. Just like with Israel.
Makes them skeptical.
Exactly. Like if I say Israel killing children from Palestine is disgusting, that is disgusting. You can call me an anti-Semite, I won't give a crap. Like, it's horrible. So using terms, be careful. I always don't like it when people just lamp you with a term because it does nothing to encourage debate or give reason behind things.
Like if the term anti-Zionist becomes acceptable, then becomes acceptable to use, then people on the on the radical sides of politics that actually are anti-Semitic will start using that term as a dog whistle and start using it to cover their own tracks when it comes to saying anti-Semitic things. And I think that's quite dangerous. Like, I think that we need to be using the correct terminology when it comes to the Israel-Palestine debate. And I know that anti-Israel doesn't sound as catchy as anti-Zionism, but it's the right term to use in that context.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. Like, just like you said, careful about using terminology. Just careful. Just use the correct terms in terms of context. Yeah, agreed.
That's our stance on it. But obviously, you're free to say whatever you want to say, and you should never let anybody, just say like take anything your opponents say with a pinch of salt, obviously, because obviously you have the right to.
Exactly.
Speech.
Like when I got told like halfway through the video I'm Islamophobic. I'm not. End of. I'm not. If the definition of Islamophobia is challenging the beliefs of Islam, then call me a fucking Islamophobe.
I was gonna say you've just added a little comment there. I've just seen it there in the chat. But anyway, I think that is about the end for this stream, isn't it, Chris? Is there anything you want to add? Any last little things you want to add?
I will add, thank you for, obviously some of my friends have tuned in and left comments. Thank you for tuning in and watching this video. It's always a pleasure to do these videos. Sometimes I may make flippant comments and I do apologise for those. However, challenge me, message me, debate me. I love it.
Come at me, bro.
I want to do it. Yeah, exactly. Come at me, bro. This has been a very interesting discussion today. I would like to close by saying that I think Corbyn is doing a lot of good for British politics. He's inspiring a lot of young people to make changes, and above all else, that can only be a good thing. Thank you. And
I'd like to just add that I must admit, your arguments they haven't convinced me, Chris, but they have softened my stance a little bit on Corbyn, I'd say, and I think I need to look at the topic a little bit more, and I hope that my stance on Corbyn has made you maybe see another point of view as well. And I think
absolutely, like I do feel like, again, Corbyn you have to be so careful when you debate Corbyn, because the media's against him.
Yeah. Nah, I wouldn't dispute that.
And so when someone says something in the media, you have to take it with a pinch of salt. And I'm hopeful that today I've shown that some of the things that I've not been always pro Corbyn, but some of the things he says are taken too far out of context.
I know, but I hope I've shown as well that sometimes he is a bit wishy-washy on what he says, and sometimes when the media does that, he's his own worst enemy for letting them do it as well.
Yes, agreed. He wasn't clear enough on tuition fees. Hasn't come out and stamped Venezuela. They are things that need to happen.
They needs to do, yeah. I think
anyway, do you want to introduce what is...
Yeah, we've already mentioned a few times.
Next week, maybe we could do a live... together, sat here, do one.
Well, I was just about to suggest that because obviously I'm coming to visit you later on this week, in next week. So
yeah, we should do a live one.
We should do one live. Yeah, we'll do it in the same room, so we won't have to deal with the problems we've had with the Skype call. So we can just speak clearly. I'll bring my microphone with me to yours, Chris. So that'll probably be. Do you want to do it
Thursday or something? Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be Thursday night. We've actually got a set date for it now, believe it or not, because obviously.
Yeah, and what's it about?
We've discussed Jeremy Corbyn today, so it's only fair that we discuss Theresa May. Are her days in government numbered? And we'll be discussing the front runners for the leadership, coming especially with regards to Jacob Rees-Mogg and Moggmentum. So if you enjoyed this...
like to do in the foreseeable future coming up, just to put a note out, you might see on my Facebook, I've recently just bought Douglas Murray's book, and I'm hopeful that we will do, or if not I can do, a book review of that, because at the moment
like to
it's
discuss
fantastic.
it. I'll be purchasing the book as well. I've got an Amazon gift card there, so I'm going to be purchasing the book with that.
So that's to come. So that's exciting.
Yeah, so that's all to come. I think we might do that as we could do that possibly as a recorded video format because I'm still playing around with my video editor.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, we'll still be streaming for now. Like we've got that pretty much figured out. But I've got it pretty much figured out. But once I've worked out my video editing techniques, you'll be seeing more recorded content that's more professional in nature and not as off the cuff, like more structured, as it were.
Yeah.
So if you're enjoying the content though, please subscribe, like the video. Thank you very much all of those that have watched till the end and enjoyed the debate.
Conrad, Charlie, thank you.
Yep, thanks to everybody that commented, Conrad and Charlie. And we'll see you next week on Thursday night.
Bye.
Good night.